You might have heard about the former UFC fighters who did well in Bellator and PFL, but in this video, I'm gonna explain to you guys and show you examples of guys who did better in the UFC and decent in the UFC, but worse in PFL and Bellator, because that doesn't get talked about much. I'm not gonna include guys who joined PFL or Bellator and they were washed, nor am I gonna count guys who only had one fight in the PFL and lost, like Brian Battle. But here are some guys who joined the joined the PFL when they were not washed, yet did worse in the PFL/Bellator, aka the B leagues, than in the UFC. Here I have South Africa's Don Matchie. Don Matchie was 2-0 in the UFC, goes to the PFL 2-2, does worse in the PFL than the UFC, right? We also have Carl Williams. After getting cut from the UFC with a 3-1 record, having only lost to Jonathan Denise, technically 4-1 if you count the Contender Series, he goes to the PFL and loses 4 straight fights and then he gets cut. You see, a guy who was technically 4-1 in the UFC becomes 0-4 in the PFL. Crazy, right? And then we have Junior Bacon Cheese, Jeremy Kennedy. When he was in the UFC, he had a 3-1 record, his lone loss being to Alexander Volkanovski. Then he leaves the UFC, goes to Bellator with a 4-2 record, which is worse than his UFC record, and the PFL 2-4. See, Jeremy Kennedy did worse in PFL and Bellator than he did in the UFC. Another one is Hurricane Shane Burgos. Shane Burgos was a UFC featherweight, having amassed a record of 8-3, leaving on a 2-fight win streak, and as a ranked featherweight, goes to the PFL, has a record of 1 win and 2 losses. Remember this guy, Enrique Barzola? He had a UFC record of 6 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. Goes to Bellator, 4 wins and 2 losses, PFL, 1 win and 2 losses. So, yeah, he did worse in the B League than in the UFC. Here's a famous example. Former UFC lightweight champion, Smooth Benson Henderson. He had a UFC record of 11 wins and 3 losses. In Bellator, 7 wins and 7 losses. I'm not gonna count PFL because that was him being washed, but Bellator, 7-7. And you might say, oh, Usman beat a washed Benson. No, he didn't. Benson was on a 2-fight win streak when Usman Nurmagomedov finished him. And plus, Benson Henderson, the former UFC champion, could not become Bellator champion. Don't forget the Armenian dreamcatcher, Gegard Mousasi. UFC record of 9 wins and 3 losses. Bellator record of 7 wins and 3 losses. About the same, but yeah, a little bit better in the UFC than Bellator.